Así va. Ya sería la cosa.
Good afternoon, everyone. Judge Vera, Judge Cortez, Judge Trevino, Judge Guerra, thank you so much for taking the time to come before the community and provide this press conference, especially during these testing times. And so thank you for your leadership that you provided to the counties, all 4 counties. And so this will begin the press conference of the COVID-19 and COVID funding.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being here today. We're really here to express our concerns over the recent rise in the number of infections that are found in the Rio Grande Valley. We were expecting an increase in numbers as the number of people that were tested increased. And of course, as the restrictions that were in place in each of our counties were eased by the governor, that also is a possible cause of this increase. What concerns us now is that the community generally is responding as we ease, how the community really is responding, how we ease these restrictions. So we are here to tell you that this virus is not gone. The threat of infections continues and remains. The increase in the numbers of those being hospitalized does also suggest that the dangerous nature of this disease has not lessened. Yesterday, Texas hit a record high number of COVID-19 hospitalizations for the 3rd day in a row, when 2,153 patients were hospitalized. In Hidalgo County, hospitalizations have nearly tripled in the last 2 weeks, with 44 people now in area hospitals and 5 of them in intensive care. As of yesterday, we've had 842 cases with 366 of them active. The most affected by hospitalizations are those in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, which of course are the older and most vulnerable people in our community. The news is not all that bad. Among similar sized counties, Hidalgo County continues to have one of the lowest rates of infection. We know what works. Shelter at home, avoiding mass gatherings, facial coverings, physical distancing, avoiding travel where possible, and practicing good hygiene. All practices that we collectively ordered throughout much of March and April. When the governor took away our ability to manage ourselves locally and open up the economy, as well as ordered more testing, we knew that the number of infections would rise. We were also concerned that these restrictions were having a negative impact on our local economy, and we realized we couldn't continue with these restrictions because of the negative pressure it placed on our economy. But we must balance the two. Public safety rests on the shoulders of economic well-being. What we want to strongly convey to you today is that you don't need for us to tell you what to do. We all know what to do. You can and you should do your part to be part of the solution. You don't need our restrictions. We simply need to continue to engage in the practices that we know work. A shelter in home, avoid mass gatherings, facial coverings, physical distancing, avoiding travel, and good hygiene. Unfortunately, today, Hidalgo County is expecting the count to be and to exceed 70, which would be the highest that we've had on any particular day. With that, I'd like to turn it over to County Judge Trevino for some comments.
Thank you, Judge Cortez. This one?
we're going the right direction.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Judge. I appreciate it. Thank you for helping put this together. Want to thank Judge Vera and Judge Guerra for joining us. I have to echo everything that Judge Cortez just said. The situation in Cameron County, unfortunately, has been a little more dire and drastic because of the fact that we had a couple of hot spots at those nursing homes. In any event, it's not something that's unusual with regard to this virus. Many other communities, both small and large, throughout the state, throughout the country, experience the same type of scenario and situation. What's been very disheartening, disappointing, frustrating for my sake as County Judge of Cameron is that as of today, we've experienced 42 deaths. We yesterday had our high day of 39 cases, which brought us to 990 positive. So I'm sure that today we will pass 1,000. What I do need to reiterate is the fact that we have had almost 700 that have cleared and recovered. A lot of people think that us county judges and elected leaders only focus on the positive cases, and we fail to mention that many people, the great majority of them obviously survive, and that's true. But from my perspective, the fact that I know that 42 individuals have lost their lives as a result of this virus is of no comfort to me, because each of those individuals had their own families. They were fathers, mothers, grandfathers, grandmothers, brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts. And to know that this virus has extinguished their lives is something very personal to me. And that's why, at least from my perspective, and I think the other county judges and elected leaders here in the Valley would agree, we've been adamant in advising, initially mandating, and now recommending that each of you do your part. I remember one of the first press conferences that I had when this was first getting started, and we were at 6 cases, 10 cases, 13 cases, and then it started to jump. A lot of people were criticizing myself, and I'm sure Judge Cortez and Judge Guerra and Judge Vera for telling people to, whatever the order may have been at that point, whether it was a curfew, whether it was recommending that you shelter in place and at home, avoid crowds, obviously utilizing personal hygiene. But we wanted to avoid the worst case scenario. And the studies show that everything that we did at the local level, in conjunction with our mayors, in conjunction following CDC guidelines, we saved a lot of lives. That's of no comfort with regards to the 42 lives lost. And I need to reiterate that, because in my opinion, we need to do everything we possibly can going forward. People are talking about a second wave coming in the fall. There's an assumption there that we've already passed the first wave. We're in the first wave. This has never stopped. It's slowed down. Exactly the requirements and mandates that we implemented did its job. And unfortunately, the reopening of the economy, which is necessary, but I think with more safeguards could have helped keep those numbers and positive results in place for a much longer extended period of time. I don't believe it's an either or scenario or situation. It doesn't have to be that everybody has to be at home, and it doesn't have to be that everybody is out and about getting back to work, buying goods and services. It can be both, but everybody should exercise those safeguards, those actions that we know work. Judge Cortez has said it. Obviously, we're all going to allude to it. Wear your facial covering, wear a mask. Stay at home as much as possible. Keep your visits outside the house to a minimum. I know everybody missed seeing their family and friends, missed giving them a hug and a kiss on the cheek, or shaking hands and doing all the other stuff that we're used to doing, but we're putting each other in danger. The clusters that we've seen are family members giving it to one another. And the nuance of this particular virus is that you can be asymptomatic, feel absolutely fine, have 0 symptoms, and yet be a carrier. You may be okay, And maybe you know people who have had it and recovered. What we don't know about this illness is what the long-term effects are going to be, whether you're young or old, whether you're immune suppressed or you have a pre-existing condition. We don't know what impact this virus can have long-term on each of us, on our individual health. So the safest route to take is to not get sick to begin with. And you do that by assuming that you've got it and by everybody else has it. And you do that by utilizing the face coverings, the masks, keeping your distance, being respectful of others. Goes back to the golden rule. Just treat others the way you want to be treated. If you knew that somebody had it and was careless with their actions, I don't think you'd appreciate being exposed to somebody acting that way. And that's how we need to act. We've seen video, social media of individuals out and about, whether it's at the beach or at restaurants, nightclubs, and bars. We saw a picture yesterday, I believe, with the vice president and the campaign staff. Been deleted, but everyone in that picture, not one of them had a mask on. And our vice president is supposed to be leading by example. We need to do that, each of us. So we ask you to, again, we are not out of the woods. This virus is coming back full force. You just heard Judge Cortez mention that he's expecting a number of 70, I believe, which will be his highest number for Hidalgo County. That should tell you, remember the fallacy, the assumption that when it warmed up, this virus would go away. Well, here we are in June, mid 90 degrees, and this virus is in full force. So it's not what we expect. We don't know enough about this virus. So do what we need to do. The few things that we have in our toolbox, we need to do that. So continue to pray for all of us and each of you out there, for yourselves and your family. If we continue to work together, hopefully we can minimize the loss of life and the risk of life. Thank you.
Judge?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the judges for inviting us to be here and of course the media to help us pass the word to our communities as to what needs to happen. And, I don't want to reiterate everything that the judges have said, but that is the secret to solving our problems. What Judge Cortez and Judge Trevino just mentioned. In Stark County, for a good while, we held our numbers down. In fact, we went 18 days without a single case. Today at noon, now I got a report that just today from this morning till noon, we had 8 positive cases in Stark County. All this started, like Judge Trevino was saying, when we were, I guess, chartering our own boat and passing our own restrictions and orders, we had it well under control. As soon as the governor opened it up, and certainly, the economic side had to be open, but I felt it was just too quick and too much all at once. However, as soon as that happened, I think our citizens got the impression that everything was fine. They got this false sense of security. Now I can go to the beach. Now I can go to the movies. I can go to the restaurants. I can pretty much do whatever I was doing before. And that's not so. In fact, I tell people it's worse now than it was back then because more people are now having active virus. So the odds of you coming into contact with someone that has it is a lot greater than 2 months ago. But I don't know, we keep telling our people, I've always gave the citizens of Stark County all the credit for keeping our numbers down at the beginning because they were following the orders. But all of a sudden, I get the impression that they feel that this thing is over, and it's not. The virus is still there. It hasn't gone anywhere, and it will continue to be there. We've had 1 death in the county, and that's 1 death too many. We currently have had 5 people in the hospital. 3 of them have recovered. 1's still in the hospital, and 1 was deceased. We were hoping that we could get through this without any death because as just Trevino mentioned, that's very personal to us. I take that as a failure on our part. We were not able to to protect them. But then again, we can only do so much. We need the help of the citizens to follow the orders that we had in place before. When the governor said you could go to the restaurants it's going to go up to 75%, it doesn't mean that you have to go. I strongly encourage that you avoid any type of meetings in restaurants or anything like that. Going to the beach. I know I don't have a beach, but I have Falcon Lake, and they go there. There'll be other times when you can go. It doesn't have to be right now. Right now, you have to be concerned about your families. We've had several babies, weeks old, months old. Those babies are not going to any party. It's people that are going out and then coming home and getting them infected. If you don't care about yourself, think about your family. They're the ones that are placing in danger your grandparents, your parents. So, again, I wholeheartedly agree with the judges. Social distancing, washing of your hands as often as you can, stay home unless you have to go out. All these things have worked. We have seen them work. So we need to go back to that. We cannot fine anyone for not having a mask, but we're encouraging businesses not to allow people to go in that don't have masks. That's about the only thing we can do. So again, I thank you for having us here and helping us spread the word to the citizenship in the Valley. We need your help.
Judge Guerra?
This one? Okay. Well, thank you for making me part of this, Judge Cortez, Judge Trevino, Judge Vera. And we're kind of in the same boat in Willacy County. Obviously, we had a breakout at our local county jail. But it looks like the jailers are, at least the first one that got back with positive results are coming back. We had our third death rather, yesterday, the day before. We were notified a lady in her 60s. So, when the governor opened up the businesses coming back, prior to that, we made the calls here locally. The county judges did, along with the mayors and so forth. So I think we did what we could. The governor did what he could. And at the point of when it was time that he felt with his team to open up, he did that. So even with his plan, it was known that there would be closely monitoring of where we would be at, right? Today we come before you that there's a flag coming up of the results that are now showing. But I want to let everybody out there know that the control is with the community. Nothing has changed as far as that goes. You have your own situation, you make your decisions, but just keep in mind that your decisions affects others. And that's what's different about this virus, is that you play a role on others. So we're asking you at this point, we're raising the flag that there's somewhat of a change for the worse. And so be extra careful and continue to do as before what was asked of you by either the CDC or the local health departments or even the county health departments. So be aware and keep in tune. The other is that we appreciate the media passing on the information daily. I think you all play a big role in doing so. You're as accurate as you could possibly be, and that's highly appreciated from all of us. So continue to help us out with that. Thank you.
Before we take questions from the press, I believe Judge Trevino wanted to address a little bit about the recovery as it relates with the census.
Thank you for bringing that. Thank you for bringing that up. All of us here, we had several meetings over the last 2 years in preparation for the 2020 census. We had a game plan. We had organizations. We had the community involved and participating, community leaders at the local, at the school board, everybody engaged and ready to go. And just when we were ready to start our community activation, reaching out to the community, COVID-19 hits. Each of us should know the importance that the Valley has lost out on hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars over the last several decades because we've not been counted properly. I want to commend the judges and the mayors and everybody who got us to the point ready to go. But COVID-19 obviously has had an impact. The latest numbers from the state or from the census show that the national average is at 60%. Let me get that. 60%. Texas is at 55.5%. Cameron County is at 42.8. I think Hidalgo's like at 43.5. I don't know. Willacy, I think, was at 25.
We're behind at 25, 28.
And Judge.
34%.
So none of those numbers are acceptable for any of us, but we know that COVID has had its impact. Plus the fact that we knew we were going to have a hard time dealing with the fact that many people were concerned that if they responded, it may impact their status. Some may be undocumented, and there's a fear factor there. So this has been something that's decades long, and we're trying to reverse it because we've just saw the disparity in how decisions are made with regards to population. Hidalgo County is over 500,000. Cameron County, I know, is over 500,000, but according to the census, we're at 425, 435,000. That $65,000 difference has had a huge impact on our ability with regards to the COVID-19 situation. We've got more positive cases. We've had more deaths in Hidalgo, which is approximately double our population. And yet Hidalgo, because being over that threshold, just a arbitrary threshold that Congress set, and I understand they needed to make a decision quick, so they picked a number. But that number has had a drastic impact. Hidalgo is getting $176 per capita, per person, whereas Cameron and the other counties, the other 242 counties in the state are getting a $55 per capita. And that's assuming we get our full portion. Right now, we're only at $11 per capita. And so we still have to go ask the state for it. The difference being is that all of our constituents have needs, and the census is a guiding force with regards to how much money we get for education, for housing, for law enforcement, for economic development. Everything that we do in government is a function and flows from the census. So we're pleading. Les estamos pidiendo a cada uno de ustedes que están oyendo, que nos están escuchando, por favor, tienen que participar en el census. You have to participate in the census. This is the first time that this census is web-based. It's internet. You can do it off your phone. You can do it. You can call. You can make a phone call. You don't have to wait for that packet. You don't have to wait for them to come knock on your door, regardless of where you live. And you need to do this for yourselves and for all of us to help each and every one of you. The census is a determining factor on how much money the Valley gets, and we've lost out too much. We've got an opportunity. This only comes around every 10 years. We don't get to fix this in a few months or 6 months. We got a little bit more time because of the COVID-19. But the numbers have been stagnant. For the last month, basically, none of our 4 counties have changed very much, but a small percentage. We've got a long way to go. We need you to help us so that we can get those resources to you. Por favor, que nos ayuden.
Si nos puede decir lo mismo del censo, pero en español, por favor, para nuestra audiencia.
Por eso dije unas palabritas. Bueno, está bien.
Es que pues dijo la importancia de participar en el censo.
Sí, claro, claro. Cada 10 años tenemos una oportunidad de arreglar las cosas sobre la población que nosotros, donde vivimos aquí en el Valle. Por décadas, el Valle no ha sido contado correctamente Y por esa razón nosotros aquí en el Valle hemos perdido millones, 100 millones, a lo mejor billones de dólares en recursos del gobierno federal que nosotros podíamos ayudar, usar y utilizar para ayudar a cada uno de ustedes. El Census nomás pasa cada 10 años. Yo les puedo decir que yo he estado trabajando con los otros jueces preparando los últimos 2 años para el Census, sabiendo la importancia del Census. Los porcentajes que estamos aquí viendo en el Valle están bajo el Estado y bajo la cuenta de Nacional. Eso indica que vamos a estar perdiendo otra vez dólares que nosotros podemos utilizar para cada uno de ustedes, para proyectos de salud, proyectos de educación, de infraestructura, de las casas, de policía, bomberos, emergencia. Todas esas cosas se hacen las decisiones bajo el Census. Y les estoy pidiendo a cada uno de ustedes, por favor, ayúdenos. Este año es la primera vez que lo pueden responder por sus teléfonos, por el internet, y cada uno de nosotros, sin embargo, que los recursos tienen un teléfono celular y con eso pueden responder para cada uno de ustedes y sus familias. Y si hacen eso para ustedes mismos, nos van a estar ayudando a nosotros, que nos podemos ayudar a cada uno de ustedes.
Now open for questions. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for being here. From Channel 5, what's the latest on contact tracing when it comes to the recent numbers? Some of them have been community-based, but I know it's hard to find where it's coming from, but has there been any common places, like let's say restaurants or businesses that have recently opened up that you found positive cases for?
I think that question would be best answered by our health department director. Is Eddie here?
Right here, sir.
Okay. He asked the question, where are we on contact tracing?
We're working with the state of Texas.
Eddie, can you get on a microphone?
Oh, there you go again. That's okay. Eddie Olivares, Hidalgo County Health Human Services. Hidalgo County is working with the state of Texas in contact tracing. There is different levels of opportunity to get started. We are at the level 2. We contacted the state today to see if we could be moved to level 1. What that means is that there's certain areas of the state that are going to start first. And it has to do with the software system the state has. So we're working with them. RGV has been contracted to actually do contact tracing for the state, but they're doing it at different levels, different areas of the state, not only in the valley. So the focus here is trying to get the state to work with us to get the software and implementation of their system in place. It hasn't been fully operational yet, but hopefully soon will be fully operational. But for you to know, we do contact tracing. Hidalgo County Health Human Services, Cameron County Health, the Department of State Health Services does contact tracing already. That's part of our everyday operations. We contact all the people who test positive, get in contact with some of the people that are involved with them directly, and coordinate additional testing and additional information to help get those situations in place. Additionally, Hidalgo County actually does isolation orders by order of the DA. When there is a person who tests positive, they receive isolation orders to stay home for 14 days. That is by order of the district attorney's office. So all that goes in place together as part of the investigation and the contact tracing.
Going off that, do those
So
numbers
we'll
apply-
take another question from here. We'll take another question from here.
Good afternoon, judges. What do you hope to accomplish from today's press conference? Are you asking the governors to give special accommodations to the border people, saying that this area is suffering at a special specific losses given its proximity to Mexico and given these spiraling cases? What do you want to happen? You've mentioned the governor several times.
Well, I'll start. I'll start by saying that, the Rio Grande Valley, we're a community of communities. And we cross travel all throughout these 4 counties. So we have a responsibility to one another. And when you travel across the valley here, it doesn't seem like anybody thinks we're in a pandemic, but we are. And this is serious. If we look at that 7-day average total, just look where that trend is going. Okay, there's a way to stop that. And quite honestly, I don't want to blame the governor. I don't want to blame anybody. Okay, because we know what to do to stop that growth from going the way that it is. And we've all mentioned it, you know, physical distance, facial covering, stay away from crowds, all of the personal hygiene, all those things. We all have a responsibility to one another. And I think hopefully this news conference will bring attention to the fact that we do have a serious problem here, and it's our responsibility to do our part.
If I may follow up.
I'm sorry, no follow-up. Can you go, you want to go? Joe?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Go ahead.
Hi, Judge Trevino. Recently this week, you sent a letter to Chad Wolf, Acting Secretary of Homeland Security, and you, on behalf as chairman of the Texas Border Coalition, advocating for restrictions to be lifted on the international ports of entry, saying that we need this cross-border trade to continue. Does this sound counter to what you're saying today? I mean, you're basically saying, let people come across, and yet we're saying we have a problem with people doing it.
No, not at all. What we need to do is have people be responsible and also have a sense of fairness. The entire state of Texas, the rest of the country is opening up for business. The uniqueness of the border communities is that we live and rely on one another on both sides of the border. U.S. citizens have been allowed to cross into Mexico during this entire time. Border trade, i.e. truck travel, commercial travel, that's been considered essential and that's been allowed. What's not been allowed is for the Mexican national with a tourist visa or crossing card to come over and be able to spend their money. That didn't mean that if they had crossed over while we had mandatory orders in place, that they would not have had to utilize facial coverings, social distancing. They can still do that. And I think, again, I agree with Judge Cortez. We're not blaming the governor, but we need to also pay attention and learn from what's going on. The reopening of the state, we anticipated rises in cases. I'll be honest with you, I was hoping we would not see it this quickly or this high, but I think it's as a result of people letting their guard down. Go back to Memorial Day, and this is a direct result. We've seen the people getting out and about, people going to one another's for barbecues, for parties, for get-togethers. We understand that. But if you don't practice what we've asked you to do, you're going to get each other sick. So is it a little bit of a conflict? Yeah, I understand the question. But why should the border community, if the rest of the state and the rest of the country is opening up for business, our businesses on the border rely on people from both sides of the border to support them?
Well, I want to add to that, because before I walked into this building, I got my temperature taken. Someone asked me if I had any symptoms, coughing or whatever. Well, if I'm coming across from Mexico into the United States, I mean, that can easily be done. And it took seconds.
They are doing that, yeah.
It took seconds. So to me, that's not an excuse. If we can take precautions here, we can take precautions with any international trade, which is extremely important to us.
Are we getting?
Let me just finish up real quick on that. The last point I wanted to make is that there's a bit of unfairness that the rest of the state and the rest of the country is opening up for business, and yet we on the border are still having to deal with these restrictions. So there's a little bit of a conflict as far as we can see as to why this is continuing. We take those safeguards, we put those safeguards and protections in place. It's the same as anybody else going to a local restaurant or any other particular venue.
Are we getting close to overburdening our hospital, our healthcare systems?
Good. The answer is no, not yet. We do have excess capacity right now at the levels that we're in. I believe, Eddie, do you have the numbers up there by any chance?
Not on these.
Not on these slides, no. Not yet, but that was our main concern when we got started with all this restriction, was not to overwhelm our healthcare providers. But no, we're not there yet.
We are in a different situation. Our numbers are creeping up, and there's a concern. We were at 41% yesterday of non-ICU dedicated beds, 22%. Those numbers match our high point, back in April when we thought we hit our top point. So we are concerned. We don't have as many beds available as Hidalgo does. But this to us is a larger indicator. We hate seeing these high number of positive cases on a daily basis increasing. But thankfully, thank God, most everybody's been able to take care of themselves, self-isolate and quarantine, take care of themselves and recover at home. But those individuals that end up having to be hospitalized as these numbers continue to raise and increase potentially has a burden. And that's been the whole fear factor here. If we overburden our healthcare facilities, our hospitals, then we're going to be in a bigger danger because obviously it puts the health workers at risk. It puts other people that have other unrelated illnesses at risk. A lot of people didn't want to call 911 during the shelter in place because they didn't want to go to the hospital and be around people who may be COVID-19, people with heart attack, chest pains, whatever else it may have been. And doctors have told us, we've seen other unrelated issues because people put off going to the doctor or going to the hospital. We don't want people to do that. They need to call 911 and not put off any other illness because it leads to other problems.
Steve?
Yes, I'm sort of surprised by what I've heard at this press conference. I thought the fact that there's 4 judges together, which doesn't happen very often, that you'd have a big announcement to make. But unless I'm missing it, you're saying the same thing you say every day: wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance. Do you not have the power, or have you not thought about reining things back in, asking people to stay back at home? In your case, Judge Trevino, close the beach. Where's the big plan to stop this spike and get it going down again?
Well, the governor made a decision taking away our local authority. Any order of ours that was in conflict with the state would be null and void and not in effect. As local leaders, we respect all of our elected officials, both local and those above us, and we have to follow the governor's orders. Hopefully, as these cases continue to spike statewide, as I understand that we're at the highest rate hospitalization statewide, maybe they'll make some of these mandates that we had in place, mandate them again, mandate the wearing of the facial coverings, social distancing, and maybe pull back just a little bit, not necessarily on the economy side, but have everybody take a little bit more responsibility for their own actions.
Well, Stephen, I beg to differ with you. I think we made a huge announcement today. We have 4 county judges from this area. They're basically telling our community of communities we have a serious problem, and all of us need to pay attention to it. And it's not going to go away by us, putting restrictions on you, because any restriction we put on you is really, we're asking you to take certain action, and that action you can take it without us having to tell you what to do it. So we're hoping that the communities understand that, realize that is for the benefit of us. If you look at some of the history that we've had, some of the young people, and I'm not saying that they're all irresponsible, but some are, and these are the ones that are affecting our older people. We think that's wrong. We think that they should stop that and take more precautions.
Okay, let me add to that just a bit. Steve, I think what we're trying to get across to the community is the seriousness that we have. And like Judge Cortez says, the governor superseded any order that we had. So really our hands are tied to a lot of things. We cannot mandate some of the things that certainly I would like to mandate, can't do it. So what we're trying to accomplish here is that our communities understand that this is a very serious situation that we're in. And like I said before, just because the governor says you can do it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it. We're asking that people do what they were doing 2 months ago. It was working. Right now, they're not. So I think that's the biggest message that I certainly want to pass to our citizens in Stark County. They need to go back to what we were doing 2 months ago. I cannot mandate it. I cannot fine anyone for not wearing a mask or for being out on curfew. I can't do very much. So it goes back to them. They have to do it.
Tenía prácticamente la misma.
Queremos que el juez Guerra.
As I mentioned before, basically the community is in control, right? We're coming before the public and let them know that there is somewhat of a spike. Now, this is not something that we didn't plan for. When I say we, I'm including the state. We knew that we were going to keep an eye on the outcome. Yes, there was talks about second wave. There was a big talk initially about the high peak coming, right? The original wave, and that we would have enough ventilators. Recall all that? Okay, so what we're saying is that, and yes, there's been tremendous amounts of testing going on in Willacy County. And I'm happy to say that we don't have a health department, and the state has been very, very helpful, and in fact is doing great in monitoring. And we had testing done in our various communities. We had Sebastian done Monday and Tuesday. We had Lifer done on Wednesday. We're doing today in Port Mansfield. Tomorrow is La Sara, and Saturday is San Perlitas. All of next week, Raymondville will be done in increments of 4 hours a day for 4 or 5 days. So there's a lot of testing going on, which was part of the plan. However, so if there is a concern, and we're saying there is, about the spike that has turned out in Willacy County, I can tell you 2 weeks ago, we were at 15 and 16, and now we're at 46 in a period of 10 days or so. Now, is a lot of that having to do with testing? Absolutely. Does the breakout that we had in the county jail having to do with testing? No. Yes, we did test all of our jailers and deputies and all the inmates. But so what we're simply saying is that we are doing as best we can, and we are notifying the community to take extra precaution because of the trend that has happened here in a short period of time for the past days or so.
Es prácticamente la pregunta que hizo Stevie sobre, les voy a pedir su apoyo, si me lo pueden decir también en español, y en cuanto a la frontera, sobre si con lo que dijo usted, Juárez Treviño, sobre que cree que es injusto que a pesar de que se está abriendo todo, pues aquí en la frontera se está limitando un poco el acceso como quiera y las medidas que se están tomando, y si hay miedo de que vayan a incrementar estos casos si se llegase a abrir completamente la frontera.
Comenté antes que los ciudadanos americanos han tenido el poder y autorización de cruzar durante esta crisis. Han ido a Matamoros, a Reynosa, a hacer sus compras, a ver los doctores, los dentistas, cualquier cosa que querían hacer lo podían hacer y se regresaban a los Estados Unidos, aquí en el Valle. Cuando el gobernador y el presidente estaban abocando y promoviendo que las economías del país y del estado se deben de abrir, entendemos completamente, porque la realidad es que esta crisis ya hizo mucho daño a nuestra economía. Millones y millones de personas han perdido sus trabajos, sus empleados. Las tiendas que no estaban abiertas por mucho tiempo sufriendo porque no tenían manera de ganar su dinero para pagar sus biles, sus cuentas cada mes que nosotros tenemos que pagar. Se oye y se ve un poco mal de la vista de nosotros que aquí en la frontera, que nosotros vivimos de ambos lados, sabemos que el mexicano viene y hace sus compras, compra sus cosas, hace sus servicios aquí en los Estados Unidos. La frontera de la frontera de Texas espera esa ayuda, espera ese dinero, y obviamente nos ha estado afectando. En el condado de Cameron nosotros tenemos varios puentes. Más del 50% de las personas que han cruzado diariamente hemos perdido millones de dólares. Obviamente eso nos está afectando. Cada nosotros vamos a estar empezando el trabajo en los presupuestos para el próximo año. Sabemos que vamos a tener dificultades porque no vamos a tener los mismos recursos que esperábamos por el crisis. Por eso, si no quieren abrir los puentes, a dejar los mexicanos que crucen, pues deben de buscar otra manera que nos ayuden. Y eso es en los fondos directamente, que nos va a ayudar a cada uno de nosotros en nuestros condados.
Y solamente si me pueden decir en español, disculpe, sobre lo que estaban diciendo de que si tienen en el pensado en un futuro volver a implementar lo que es de manera obligatoria que las personas utilicen el cubreboca, los toques de queda, todas esas medidas. Sabemos que ustedes lo están recomendando, pero ¿qué pasa si no, o sea, tener la autoridad de hacer un hecho en los condados del Valle?
No quiero ser el único que...
Gracias.
Pues ahorita está en las manos del gobernador. No está en las manos de nosotros, o la pregunta realmente se la tiene que hacer al gobernador. Por eso nosotros queríamos ciertas autoridad y hacer las decisiones aquí localmente, porque somos únicos, somos muy diferentes. La frontera de aquí, del Valle del Río Grande, es muy diferente de la frontera que está en Amarillo, que está en Houston, es muy diferente. Pero el gobernador está encargado de esas cosas. Obviamente, ahorita lo está viendo, está escuchando lo que estamos usando aquí, lo que estamos preguntando. Ojalá que mire él que esto que le estamos pidiendo posiblemente que cambie de opinión y nos dé ese privilegio de tomar ciertas acciones aquí nosotros mismos. Ojalá que esto vaya a ayudar en eso.
Final question goes to you, sir.
Thank you, Carlos. Judge Vera, Judge Cortez, Judge Trevino, and Judge Guerra. Should the Trump administration reopen bridges on June the 22nd? Answer yes or no, please, and a brief why.
Y'all have more bridges.
Okay,
Well, I really would like the chairman of the Board of Trade or the Texas Border Coalition, to answer that question. But my personal opinion, having been a prior mayor of McAllen and an owner of 2 international bridges, the answer is what I would ask the president is to pay attention to the necessity and the importance that our trade with Mexico has to the overall economy of the United States. And to the extent that there are procedures and possibilities of opening our bridges back in a safe way, that we should do it. We just shouldn't arbitrarily say no, and we shouldn't arbitrarily pick a date. We should let science and best information dictate our actions.
The short answer is yes, absolutely. With those due considerations that we've mentioned previously, Judge Cortez alluded to it. If the rest of the country, the rest of the states opening up for business, those of us here on the border in the valley, we live on the Mexican national who comes and spends their money, who invests and crosses on a daily basis. We've seen the spike, we've seen the increase, and that's more because of the fact that people, I think, are not doing the things that we asked them to do previously. If they were to go back and act in the responsible way that we've asked of them before we mandated it, now we're requesting, we're recommending it, I think that would go a long, long way to addressing the virus. This virus is not going to go away anytime soon. There's no vaccine, there's no prescribed medical treatment. However, if we utilize these few items that we have in our toolbox, I think it'll have the impact that it had when we first mandated it at the beginning. One last point I want to make, all those individuals valley-wide that have recovered, which is over 1,000 people now, they have an opportunity to donate their blood plasma to the hospitals in order to help those other individuals that continue to suffer from the virus because of experimental treatment. They use that blood plasma from infected individuals to help those individuals that are currently suffering from the virus. So if you've had it, please donate your blood plasma.
And I don't know when was the last time our president spoke to the governor of Tamaulipas, but we can speak to him any day. If there's issues that we need to resolve or reconcile our needs and their needs, it's something we can have daily contact with so we can make those improvements to make it possible.
I know you guys mentioned that you're telling us that you want the governor to give you guys more power. Have you guys written letters like you, Justin, did to DHS? Has there been that communication with the local region to the governor's office? Hey, maybe we reduced the number on restaurants, something like that?
The simple answer for me is yes, and I even send smoke signals too. It's that the other ones didn't.
Yeah, a letter was prepared by Judge Cortez and we all signed off on it, asking for that. On our bridge, we have 3 ports of entries in Starr County, And I agree with Judge Trevino. I think they should be open. Our bridge in Roma that's owned by the county, our county, I guess it's a little different in the way that a lot of our people that live in Stark County have family in Miguel Alemán or Camargo and vice versa. So for them, it's also very, I guess, challenging that they cannot see their grandparents or, come see their family. So I think I agree, maybe it should be open. However, that all precautions be taken, that they're tested, their temperature, everything else before they come across. And we also, in the order that I had before, they could come for 24 hours, and of course, be tested, do everything else, and then they had to go home. If they stayed for more than 24 hours, then they had to be quarantined that whole period of time. So.
You have final words?
Yes, and as you're aware, Willacy County does not have an international bridge. However, I can tell you that I'm here in a supportive stage, as a support to all county judges that do, and I'll tell you why. We have to rely in Willacy County on the decisions that Judge Trevino, Judge Cortez, and Judge Vera, to a point, do as far as local economy. We keep a close eye, for instance, on how their hospitals are doing, and guess why? Because our citizens, our residents wind up there. So I have to support, and I do believe that what they're asking in terms of opening the bridges is indeed what needs to be done for the local economy to continue, and obviously for us to have as a region, and more important to Willacy County's residents, to have these hospitals available and beds for our residents in Willacy County.
Thank you.
That concludes the press conference. Thank you very much.